Michael.
So, this speech, I titled it 8 years. It's because I've been waiting 8 years to give. It was 11:30 at night. Yes, I believe it was, because I know it was past my bedtime. That's the only thing I can remember from that night. I was standing over a bed, and there was someone in that bed. And he looked up at me, but then he looked away. And there's a face I can never forget. I was around 12 years old. I remember I was 12 because I remember going back to school. I remember my classes. I remember my teachers. I remember my friends. And their lives kept going. Just going. I remember the bullies. I remember everything. It was life were normal, except it wasn't. Life wasn't normal. It was the day my life kind of changed. 11:30 at night, I stood over my grandfather. David Barber. I've talked about him before a little bit, but I've never really told anybody what he meant, what his meaning in this world was. So I had to really think about, what was that meaning? What did he give? You know, he's one of the most intelligent, brilliant people I have ever met in my life. And maybe I'm not saying that because, hey, my grandfather, of course he's the smartest person, but no, he was actually brilliant. The few writings that we still have from him, he was a genius. He didn't tell anybody about it. You just knew. You saw it. But the thing that put him in that bed was esophageal cancer. Spread through his stomach, went throughout his body. And unfortunately, that was coupled with some Alzheimer's. So you saw that intelligence kind of fade. Just a little bit at a time, you forget things. Things just kind of, you just slipped your mind, and then it kind of went away. And we wonder where that brilliance went. He could laugh. He had a big pot belly. He could take up a room with his presence. But that cancer, it wore him down. So he was nothing but the size of the smallest person in this room. Probably about your size. His hair, he had a great beard in his face. A big caterpillar mustache. It was recognizable anywhere. Of course, that all fell out. He had an example that he set. He set the example for me of what I wanted to be, but when I look at him at 11:30 at night, 8 years ago, what did I see? Everything was taken from him over the course of 3 to 6 months. Everything was taken. And so of course we feel bad about this. When I went to his funeral later, the only thing I could do as I stood over the casket was say there is no God. There is nothing in this world, there is no love. There is nothing left for me in this world. The one person that I cared about, the one person that I really looked up to, the one person that could be the embodiment of what I could be, the potential that I saw in my life was gone. It was finished. My flame was extinguished. But we stood over his bed at 11:30 at night. And he looked up at us. And he said something. He said something to all of us. But he didn't just say it to me. And he said it to you. He said it to Bartholomew. He said it to Conley. He said it to Dan. He said it to Mr. Turner. He said it to all you in this room. He said it to everyone I'll ever meet. Because there's one thing that cancer could not take away. He looked up at us and he said, I love you. With the last few fading breaths he had, that's all he could say. Was, I love you. I love you. He traded everything he had. And every breath, every ounce of life in him was an exertion. That was all he had left. Was to tell us that he loved us. Not everything is taken. And it took me 8 years to figure out what that meant. It took me 8 years to learn that lesson. 8 years it took me to realize that the Great Reaper, which ripped out every thing that seemed to make him great, it really didn't take away anything at all from him. It didn't take away who he was. I could drop dead of an aneurysm right now. I could get shot in the back and be paralyzed. I could lose my contract. I'd be brain dead. If there's one thing that no death of anything can take away from me. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Those things, that is something that cannot be taken away. Because no matter what happens to us in life, life continues. There will always be pain. There will always be loss. These things, they're things that we value just because, hey, it gives us something to identify ourselves by. But we're not defined by our intelligence. We're not defined by our strength and our speed. We're not defined by how many medals and ribbons we wear. We're not defined by our rank or our position in society. He was just a HA or an HR at Lockheed Martin. You wouldn't think that's something great. It's just another guy that works for a big company, a face in the crowd, yet here he is. He's speaking to you right now. He's saying, I love you. I love you all. And the love that he put out into this world cannot be measured. The love he put out into this world cannot be taken away. And really, when I think about it, when I look down at his face and he drew his last breath, and his eyes glazed over, and his body went limp, I think through all the pain of those past 6 months, that was the one time he actually had a smile on his face. He was released from the pain of this world, so he could, but he still had the one thing that death could not take. So yes, it was miserable for a while. Death does that. Pain does that to us. It beats us down until we are nothing. It makes us think we are nothing. It makes us think that we are less than we are. It makes us think that we are incapable of spreading love to others. We think that love can be taken from us, but it can only be taken from us if we give it away. And despite not even knowing his own name that night, despite not even being able to recognize the faces in front of him, he still knew, somewhere inside of him, still knew he loved. I love you. I love you. I love you. 8 years ago. With those words, he never died. With the love we put out into this world, we become immortal. We do not die by our actions. We do not die by the things we say, except unless it is love. Those things, those little things that you worry about every day, they go away. It's gone. Nobody remembers that. What they're going to remember is what you did for them. They're going to remember whether you gave them love or not. That is what people remember of you. 8 years ago. He's still here. And this one's for him. Thank you.